Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video. And in today's video, we have the Creality CR-5 Pro. So this is an industrial printer and it's quite large and heavy. So it's quite interesting to see what this printer is all about. So in this video, we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. All right, so let's get started. Alright guys, so this is quite a large box here, and before I continue anymore, I want to shout out to Top 3D Shop that sent this printer. So if you're interested in this or any other 3D printers, check them out, links in the description. So in front of the box we can see the picture of what the printer looks like. So here we have the dimensions of the box, and the weight is an astonishing 85 pounds. I guess 40 kilograms, so a very heavy machine. So judging by the box and how large it is, I'm pretty sure it's a pre-built unit, and with my experience, normally opening it from the bottom is best. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so it's pretty exciting to open this thing up. So I'm just gonna flap all the cardboard open, and then we're gonna flip it around, and sure enough, we can see the feet of the printer. And 85 pounds is definitely no joke. All right, going up. So there's foam all around the printer, and there was also a top here, so very well protected. Lots of thick foam, packed very well. So first initial glance looks like the whole thing is metal, and it's not that thin metal, it's actually quite thick, and this explains why it's pretty heavy. Now technically this is an industrial printer, so this is going to be a little better quality than you would expect as a consumer printer. And also I'm loving the white, it looks very futuristic. Alright, so let's see if we can get the rest of this foam out. So for how heavy this printer is, you definitely probably would want some help maybe getting it out of the packaging. So I did lay it on the side. Maybe you guys can see here what the bottom looks like. So we got some ventilation here, and this is all thick metal, and we got 4 rubber feet here. Let's carefully stand it back up. All right, and this is what it looks like out of all of the foam. So first impressions, very heavy, very large, and definitely industrial feeling. So it looks like there's a door here, and it opens up. And it looks like acrylic with the protector still on it. So it looks like we got more foam underneath here. We got the US power cord. And there is more foam in here with stuff inside of it, but I'm not sure how you're supposed to take this out. I think maybe we should run this up and then diagonally take it out. Hopefully that'll do it. So it looks like we have some accessories here. So we got a roll of filament, Creality branded, and it is 1 kilogram of white PLA. And we also get a little toolbox. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Never seen this kind of presentation. So let's see what's inside. So we do get an after sales card with warranty information, the user manual, a very nice one with clear instructions, shows you how to get set up. And as you guys can see, a bunch of little stuff in here, definitely lots of extra parts and pieces. So we got a spool holder, you probably have to install this. Full size SD card, 8 gig with a USB adapter to connect to the computer. a glue stick. Not sure why you would need it here, but you might. A couple extra nozzles and a coupler, a little bottle of grease, extra PTFE tubing, a USB cable to connect from the printer to the computer, some pretty nice looking tweezers, a spatula that's not sharpened. And by the way, you definitely don't want to use a spatula like this on this kind of bed. It looks like a wrench to take off the nozzle, very nice heavy duty one, and a baggie of tools, which includes some generic cutters, some zip ties, a clean out needle, and some basic tools like open-ended wrenches, Allen wrenches, and a flat screwdriver. So yeah, very cool that they include all this with a carrying box that you can store all this stuff in. So that's definitely a nice touch. All right, so let's continue with the printer here. So I'm still quite astonished of how large the frame is and how heavy duty everything looks. A lot of these parts are oversized and beefed up, looks like. So let's go ahead and unwrap this shrink wrap. So it looks like the build platform does come off. It's held on by some clips. Okay, so just clips that pivot away. Then the bed should just slide out. And this is what it looks like. So it's a piece of glass with Creality's ultra base style little dimples that whenever they heat up, they grab the filament, and when it cools off, it pops right off. So normally these types of beds work very well, and usually on the Creality machines, they do very well. So I'm gonna leave the protector on just for now, and we'll peel it off when we start printing, because it's quite important that you don't get any grease on this, or you're gonna have trouble with print sticking. So just looking at it, it looks like a pretty typical Cartesian style printer, not anything crazy or new like a Core XY. And I do prefer that better, because I feel like even though Core XY does have its advantages with these kind of setups, I feel like the old school Cartesian individual X, Y, and Z movements are producing the more better quality results in the print. Creality is known for that, so they stuck to their formula. But we're going to take a closer look at all the details here in a second. Let's just go ahead and finish unboxing or peeling all of these protections off so we can really see how nice this printer looks. So they leave this job up to you, which will take a little bit of time, because these accessories like this handle and these hinges looks like are just mounted right on top of the protector. I wish they'd take the time and at least peel it in those sections before installing the hardware, but I guess it's somewhat understandable for manufacturing speed. But if we just push on the handle, it pops right out, it just clips in, so we can go around that pretty easy. And on the hinges, you can take them off pretty quick here. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And unfortunately, the sides, you guys maybe can see here, like this side here, and on the inside and on the outside, there's also protection. And that's going to be very hard to take off unless you unbolt it from the inside. You can see there's little bolts, 3 on each end, that hold the plastic acrylic, and then you can take it off the right way. So again, I wish they would do at least the sides in the factory, because it's already protected quite well here with foam and everything. So I don't think that would, mess up the acrylic too much. And if they were worried that much, they could just shrink wrap the whole printer at the acrylic parts, and it would have been fine. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with me taking off all these stickers, but I will show you how easy the panels come off with just 6 screws here in a second. All right, so I got the door off. You guys can see just the hinges here. And I also took off the 6 little screws on the side panel, so theoretically this should just come off. And there it goes. Not sure if we can pull it out. Okay, yeah, so it comes out quite easily. And since there's only 6 bolts, it's not very difficult to do this. And now we can peel the stickers, and then we'll just put it back on. So technically not a big deal, and just an extra step. And now we can put it back in and tighten it back with the little bolts. All right, so I got the both panels on and the door back on and everything peeled. And now we can go ahead and install our handle back on. And that actually is pretty easy. It just kind of slots in there and then clips into the acrylic glass. And just like that, we are finished. And man, what a difference. It looks amazing. Also, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the acrylic has a little bit of a slight tint of blue. So like a really, really light blue. It gives it a pretty nice upscale look. So one thing to keep in mind with this acrylic, especially here on the hinges, is that you want to be careful not to over tighten that, because if you do, acrylic can crack quite easily under stress. So just be careful with that. All right, so now that the panels are cleaned up, we can really see how nice this machine looks. So it's got this very transparent kind of look to it. Beautiful machine. So here on the top, we have a logo, and it's just a sticker. That's still a pretty nice touch. So here on the top, we can see our high-end extruder, and it does have like a metal casing. Also, it is strapped, so let's go ahead and cut it loose. And now it can be free, and it feels pretty good. So it is running on these rods. which seems to be okay. There is a little bit of wobble back and forth, but technically, you know, I am forcing it somewhat, but just slightly touching it, it does seem pretty stable. So our PTFE tubing comes out and then goes to the back. Our wiring here is covered in this fabric-y kind of protector, I guess. Quite interesting, and it's also white. And I don't know if you guys can see, but everything is aluminum. Like all these connectors here, these blocks are all aluminum, and it's everywhere. And I think this is where the whole Pro thing means on this printer. Just everything being very heavy duty metal material. So let's go ahead and open this door. And by the way, it is magnetic. So the hinges are quite nice and satisfying, and you guys can see they're very heavy duty. So just glancing on this printer from the inside, it looks pretty much like a standard Creality style printer, just with upgraded high quality materials. And so the way this printer operates is we got the X, and this is our X motor. And then we got the Y motor right here that's actually driven by a belt that's linked to another rod that turns both sides, and there's belts on each side that ride on the Y rails. So this is the Y here. And the Y rods are much more beefier than the X rods, which I kind of wish they would make the X a little larger, but I guess they're probably fine. So the Y end stop switch is over here, and then the X stop switch is over here. So this will go here and home, and then it will go forward to the front and home like that. So that's its home position. And then for the Z, this is our limit switch here, and the Z travels on these rods here, and they're also very large, even bigger than the Y rods. And also our lead screw is a lot larger than normal, and all the mounting is heavy duty aluminum, looks like. The whole bed frame is metal. Aluminum platform as normal, and it is heated and also insulated. So you guys can see the insulation there underneath. Also using high quality heavy duty springs on each corner, large knobs to adjust. You guys can see the bottom frame there, and it is thick metal here. So the way the platform goes on is it slides into those clips there, and then you clip it over to hold it in with that swivel. Also, the Z-axis offset is adjusted by this screw, and you can adjust it there with the limit switch. So on the back side of the bed, we can see that our heated bed is soldered, but unfortunately, there is no strain relief, which is kind of surprising. It might be a good idea to try to zip tie this thing somewhere to something where it's more stationary and not going to constantly move up and down. So going down, all of our rods go into this piece of metal here, and then we got our motor underneath for the lead screw. And the rods look like they're secured very well here in this clean bottom, very nice looking. There's a sticker here with a QR code and some warnings. Very nice view out both windows on each side. Feels very airy and plenty of room for sticking your hand in there and, you know, doing stuff. Going to the front here, we have the display, and it is a 4.3-inch touchscreen display. And peeling the protector off looks like almost an impossible job because it's jammed in between the screen and the metal here. It's not coming off nicely. Again, this is for Creality. You know, think about, you know, how people will be taking this off. So it would be nice if you put the screen protector on top after you install it, or go ahead and peel it, because, you know, this is not a great experience here. All right, so I cleaned it up with a knife. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and close the door, and you guys can see there's a cutout. Fits around the screen. So pretty nice attention to detail pretty much everywhere, and everything feels high quality. So going to the left side of the printer, it's pretty clean here. We have some venting holes on the bottom. Very nice and premium looking machine. Going to the right side here, we have our connections, which is the USB, and this is if you want to connect from the printer to the computer. And then our full-size SD card reader here. Our voltage selector, which is quite important because we are actually set right down to 230, so I do need to switch that to 115. So let's go ahead and do that with the provided screwdriver. All right, simple as that. Now we're on 115. So you want to make sure you check that before you power the printer on, especially if you live where voltages are 230. So yeah, it looks pretty clean on this side. And here we have the back side. So I flipped it around so we can see a little better. So on the top here, we have the hot end cable with the PTFE tubing going through this 3D printed bracket. And so the cables go through here and then inside, while the PTFE tubing keeps going down. And here we have the extruder arm. So this is a really nice one with what appears to be a dual gear, and it actually pushes on both sides. So the main gear here with the shaft turns this other one, and they both together clamp on onto the filament and push it up through the tube into the hot end. A very nice quality extruder. And looking here on the inside, you guys can see how large the motor is itself on the extruder. Very nice to see that they beefed it up. So going down below the extruder arm, we have the filament detector, and it is all metal also. We can see here there's an arrow pointing up, so your filament will go underneath through the detector and then into the extruder. So that also looks like a pretty high quality detector. So going down from here, we see we have a hole here. So this hole is actually for our spool holder, and we'll install that in a second. Let's go ahead and go here and see a label here. So this is all of the parameters of the printer. So we can see the build size is 300 by 225 by 380. So very reasonable build volume. We got the machine size, type, the power, and the weight, which is 32.5 kilograms. So quite a heavy machine. And below the label here, we have the power input that is fused and has an on and off power switch. But yeah, very nice and beautiful machine from every side. And install the spool holder. So we're going to take one of the nuts off, the side that has two, and then we're simply just going to thread it through this hole and then put the other nut through the other side and tighten it. And just like that, the spool holder is on. So our spool will literally hang here and then feed up to the detector through the extruder arm and into the hot end. So while we're back here, let's go ahead and put our spool on. And we do get Creality branded PLA here. So very nice. It looks like that nice matte white color. And so we're just going to simply set the spool right over here, and this is how it hangs. Now it does appear that it's pretty close to the switch, but there is room there, so it's not touching it. So before you feed any filament, you want to cut it at an angle, and that'll help it feed it through the system without getting caught up on anything. So we're going to go through the detector first, and actually I can hear a click. So out of the detector, we're going to go into the extruder arm. We're going to compress the arm and then push it through. So there's not too much room here to push it manually. So we'll use the printer with the extruder software to push it through like that. And so since we are back here, let's go ahead and plug in our power cord. And it does appear to be about 4 to 5 feet long, so pretty good length there. So we'll plug it in, and I can confirm that there is about ½ an inch or so from the spool itself. So it's not touching, but it's close. Now one thing I wish they would have done, and it looks like they could have, I don't know why they put the spool here. They could have offset the spool more that way, and it definitely would have been more out of the way from the cable and the switch. And also it would have lined up a lot better with the detector here. Of course, when the spool does almost run out, it's pretty close, but they could have moved it that way about an inch and still been perfectly fine and would have cleared up this area, but no big deal. That's the way it is. So everything looks good back here. So I can't wait to power this thing on, but before we do, let's go ahead and check out the hot end assembly here a little closer since we didn't look at it. So hopefully you guys can see at least something here, but we do have a 3D printed fan duct. So that's a little disappointing to see, honestly, for this scale of a printer. You would think they would have something a little bit more presentable here. Not only that, it's a little bit rough, but in any case, it doesn't matter as long as it's functioning right. So our axial fan here is on the front and is blowing through here on the tip, and the heat block is insulated, so that's good to see. Our belt connects here on this metal frame. Everything definitely feels really high quality overall, and I don't know if you guys can make out the heat break in there, but it does look like Creality's latest style. So but yeah, overall a pretty nice design and looks pretty good, but we'll see here in a second how well it's going to print. And also here on the top right, behind the Creality logo, underneath there we can see that it looks like there is an LED bar for lighting, so that's really nice. So we should have pretty good illumination inside the printer. So I got the printer laying on one of its sides, and I know there's some of you guys out there that would be pretty interested in seeing what is inside of this thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the bottom and we can take a closer look. So there are 8 bolts that we need to take off. All right, so let's take the cover off. And wow, just the cover itself is very heavy. I mean, we got a pretty thick sheet of metal here. So the printer is industrial indeed. And so here we can see all of the internals, and it's managed pretty well. But right away I can see that we're pretty minimalistic in here. There's plenty of room for other things technically. So let's take a closer look here. Starting on the top, we can see there's a hole there with some wiring. Same thing on that side. And by the way, this is the front and this is the back. Here's our Z-axis motor, and it also is the large one like the extruder motor. We can see this nice block of metal. Very nice. Going down, this is the power input. So everything looks nicely organized and crimped. We have a Meanwell power supply. You guys can see the branding there. And it is a 24 volt, 350 watts. And it's the slim version, and I like it because it's quieter. And also this fan, it only runs when it needs to. So that should help with the noise. So here we have the main board, and this is the Creality 3D version 2.51. So I'm not too familiar with what this board is capable of, or if it's silent or not, but I guess guess we'll find out when we start printing. But it does have the full-size SD card, which is nice. The stepper drivers are integrated into the board and they are heat sinked, so that's good. And that is the processor. I think it's the typical one that Creality uses. So overall, everything is managed pretty well, and it's also hot glued on the connectors so they don't pop off. There's a fan here that blows onto the board to cool it off, and we can kind of see our display board there on the front. So yeah, overall looks pretty good and clean. So I'm going to put the cover back on and we'll go to the next step. All right, so I think we're finally ready to power it on. So I'm going to go ahead and open this door. So let's go ahead and hit the power switch in the back. And I can hear it powered on. See the intro there with the loading bar. All right, it looks like we're booted up. So for the next part, what I like to do is home the machine. So let's go to control. Oh, maybe that's not where it is. Settings maybe? Okay, here we go, settings. And then move, and there's a home button right here, right in the middle. Okay, so it's homing. And I can confirm, guys, that it is quiet, or at least on the X and Y axes, and the Z axis seems reasonably quiet, but I can hear a hum on it, so not sure if that's silenced or not. But the X and Y seemed very quiet. All right, and it looks like the Z axis homed. So I didn't install the glass bed yet because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't gonna hit it when it homed. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab it, peel the protector off, while trying not to touch the build surface because any little grease will mess it up. And we're just gonna install it back to where it was. Pretty easy process, and the clips hold it here on the front. So we're gonna get off the tripod. This printer is so large, I think it'll be better if I can move you guys around so we can see a little better. So let's start here with the UI. I'm gonna go back. So a pretty nice looking UI. I definitely like the way it looks. So here we have some hot buttons of print, control, and settings. And this is our temperature on the hot end, and then our bed temperature here. So this is the main screen when you boot up. So to read the files, you'll click on print. Now control is other settings here. I'm not too familiar with this. It says automatic here. Okay, so this looks like preheating. So it's asking us PLA or ABS. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Maybe now. So I guess let's click on PLA since that's what we're starting off. Okay, so this is actually a hot button to preheat. And then we have the manual here where we control the temperatures manually. And then cooling means cool down, like if you don't want it to stop from heating up. And let's see what device is. Okay, so here we can turn the fan on and off, and also the LED. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Wow, that's bright. It just turned on and it's very bright, but also a very nice color. It's not blue or anything weird. It's actual white color. Very cool. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it on because I really like it. So let's go back. So here we have status heating. And if we go into settings, this is going to be our printer controls. So we got leveling, refuel, filament change or extruder controls. And then the movement, which we saw, can individually move or press the home button there in the middle to home it. Motor control. Okay, so this unlocks the motor, it looks like. Languages, which we have two, English or Chinese. And then about the printer, the type, the version, the printing volume, and the website. All right, so yeah, as you guys can see, very basic, not too difficult to figure out here. So I think the first thing we need to do, since it is preheating, go ahead and level the bed. So leveling the bed should be quite simple because I think it is a manual procedure here, just like Creality is known for. So it's homing right now. Okay, so it is home. So here you guys can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these are just the 4 corners and then the center. This is just an assistant to get you there, and then you're gonna have to manually turn each knob to go up and down. So let's go ahead and start with 1. So I'm gonna click it, and you guys can see it goes to our first point. And so what you want to use is some kind of sheet of paper. I'm just going to use the sticky note. And so we're just going to do the regular manual bed leveling. So we're going to start with this corner, put our paper between the nozzle and the bed. And the bed is hot, by the way. And you definitely want to preheat everything so when it does expand, you can get the right dimensions between. All right, so that's starting to drag. So I'm going to go ahead and click on 2 next. So it's going to go to the next corner, which is over here. So we're going to adjust that. So this one was actually pretty close already. Now we'll go to 3, which is going to be that corner over there, looks like. Okay, and that's too tight to loosen it up a bit. And that's good right there. You can go to 4. So yeah, pretty basic stuff. and that's too tight also. So even though I adjusted the 4 corners, we can go to the middle and check that, but before we do that, we need to go over the corners again. So you want to do the 1 through 4 at least 2 or 3 times, maybe even 4, to get all the corners very level, and then we're going to go to 5. I'm going to go ahead and do that and go over it a few times. So even though I adjusted 1 correctly, now it's too tight, and this is why you want to go over it a few times. All right, so I'm pretty happy with 4 of the corners. I had to go over it 3 times. So if you have to, keep doing it until you're really close on each corner. So now I can go to the middle and see what the middle looks like. And the reason you want to do the middle last is because once you get every corner correct, then you can offset the middle if you need to a bit. Like right now, my middle seems to be a little looser than I would like. So what I can do is I can go to each knob and turn it exactly the same amount to raise the whole thing up or down. So in my instance, I want to raise it up. So I'm going to loosen each knob just a little bit. So I'm going to do about 1/8 of a turn. So like that. So that's not going to throw off my level, but it's going to raise my bed up just a little bit, and that feels perfect right there actually. That's a little tip or trick that you can do. Now you are going to be obviously closer on the ends now. The center is obviously more important because that's where you print most of your prints, and that's where you start the prints. But because we have a glass here, it's pretty close already. So this is just a very increment kind of leveling now. So all right, so now that we're done with leveling, let's go to refuel. And this is going to control the extruder, so we're gonna feed in or out the filament. And obviously we need to feed it in right now. So it's set to 10 millimeters. I'm not sure exactly how much I need, but it's going to be a lot more than that. Let's just go with 200 right now. I think that's at least what we need. And here we have a choice either to retract or feed. We're gonna choose the feed. All right, so it's going up to temperature and it should start feeding. All right, so it took a little while. For some reason, it waits exactly when it gets there. It takes a while to get it to the right temperature. So now it is pushing, I can hear it. And you guys can see the extruder moving, or the gears moving. So it is pushing in pretty slow. I think I would just rather manually push it through because it is quite a bit of length through the whole thing until it comes out. All right, looks like here it comes. So we got some red there, and we should start having white here in a second. So it does go really slow, as you guys can see. So I would definitely push it in through manually because of how slow it is. All right, so it looks like it stopped right before it purged completely. So I'm just gonna manually push it through. You guys can see that it comes out much faster. All right, so now that we're purged, I think we are ready to print our first print. So let's go ahead and grab this included SD card and insert it here on the side. I think it goes right side up maybe? No, upside down probably. Yep, just like that. By the way, very cool, nice purple and red colors here coming out through the side. Pretty cool. So now we can click on print, and sure enough, we do have some files on there. Test dog, cat, and tootsie, whatever that means. So it looks like we do have 3 files to try out. So let's go ahead and go with tootsie. I guess that's what that is. So over here, looks like it says start. Let's click that, and looks like we've started. Very nice UI here. I definitely like this presentation. Very clean, and the dark background makes it very premium. So we can see here the temperature of the nozzle, the bed temperature, our progress bar, the percentage finished, and the time that passed. Then we have a stop button here, and then some adjusting buttons. So let's click here. Okay, so this is cool. We have an offset for the Z-axis as we're printing. So if we need to go up a little or down, we can do that on the fly. So I'm not sure what all this is. Economic mode is on. I wonder what that's about. And then we got LED, fan, print speed adjustment, nozzle temperature, and bed temperature adjustments. So yeah, all the things you need and very good controls. I'm gonna go back. So it's heating up right now, and we should start here shortly. All right, here we go. Okay, so it looks like it's purging on the side there. And there it goes. It looks like our offset is pretty much perfect, I would say. Okay, so for this print, they're using the Z-hop where the bed goes up and down constantly. So I usually normally don't like using that, but I guess for some prints, you know, it could work pretty well. All right, so it looks good to me, honestly. Now I can tell right away that it definitely has silent steppers on the X and Y because it's practically silent. You can't hear anything coming out of them. Now there is a lot of fan noise, or maybe not a lot, but a little bit of coming out of the head itself. But fan noise itself is not bad compared to stepper motor sound. Is the thing that gets quite annoying after a while. Fan noise is more kind of a soothing thing unless you know the fan is just really squeaky or something. So here you guys can see from the top, everything looks really good. The print's going down, and it looks like this bed here is working very well because it's sticking, no issues. And that's the thing I love about the style bed, is that it sticks very well when it's hot, and then when it cools, our model should just pop right off. So we'll see how that goes when it's done. But yeah, overall very quiet just for fan sound. Let me bring my mic in so you guys can hear it well. All right, so it looks like we got a really good start. And if you guys see how nice this printer looks, it's quite impressive, especially with that LED glowing on the inside. It just really enhances this plexiglass that's tinted slightly blue. It's a really unique and interesting look. And even here from the top, you can really see everything very well with that light. And so far what I can see, in good old Creality's fashion, looks like the print is gonna come out pretty nice so far. So I'm gonna let this thing print out, and we'll see what comes out. So the printer's printing away, everything looks good, about 43% done. And looking at the model, it's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, I do see some layering, so I wonder if that has to do with the Z-hop that it's doing. I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but it looks like a little bit of some kind of layering, but we'll look at it a little closer when it's finished. But overall, it is looking pretty good, so. All right, so 2Z is done, and it took 2 hours and 6 minutes, I guess. So let's open up the door here, and we can see here that 2Z is a rabbit. So the bed is cooled off pretty much. Let's see how easy this thing pops off. Well, look at that, just as expected, very easy. And this is why I love this type of bed, because it works very well. All right, so looks like overall it looks pretty good. I can definitely see a little bit of layering. I don't know if you guys can pick it up on the camera or not, but it's not perfect. It does look like it's 0.2 layer height. You can kind of see here on the top. Retraction was not perfect. We have some stringing between the ears. Well, it looks like the support here is falling off. There's just really fine stringing, so probably just need to up the retraction a bit. But overall, it's pretty smooth and pretty good. I wouldn't say, you know, it's great for sure, but for a test print that we didn't slice, it turned out okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and print the dog and the cat also in this white PLA that was included, and we'll take a look at that. So the bed took exactly 2 minutes to heat up, and the hot end looks like it will only take about a minute or so. So about 3 minutes total for the heating before print. So the dog is about 80% done, and it is a tiny little doggy. So I didn't realize it was gonna be that small. And from just looking at it, the quality looks pretty impressive for how tiny it is. All right, so we got the 3 prints printed that were on the SD card. We saw the rabbit already, and the little doggy you guys haven't really seen, but it actually turned out really good overall for how small it is. There is some layering here and there, but overall it looks pretty good. And it does look like it was sliced at 0.2, so it might be a little too rough for such a small print, but overall it turned out really good. And I haven't had any issues with sticking to the bed at all, so that's working out really nice. So it's kind of hard to judge by these prints here that are included, and plus we're using white PLA, which doesn't always, you know, translate very well. So this cat is the last thing here we printed. I guess it's that lucky cat. It does have some supports, and I can still see we have stringing all over the place, but again, I don't know if this is going to be normal, but we'll find out soon once we slice our own prints. Now let's see how easy this guy pops off. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I'm definitely loving the bed so far. Sticks very well and then just pops off when you need it. Or I guess once it cools, it just pops right off. So let's see if we can get some of these supports off real quick. So yeah, it looks like pretty good overall. The layers are sitting really nicely, mostly all over the print that I can see. There is a little bit of layering here and there, but overall pretty solid print. And this is the least I would expect out of Creality for sure. So you can tell that it definitely has precision, but it's definitely not perfect either. So I'm going to change the filament to silky black PLA, and I'll get a calibration cube and a benchy printed, and we'll see a little better how that looks. But before we do anything else, we should go ahead and use this little bottle of grease that was included, because I actually was touching some of these rods and they seem like they're not very lubricated. So I think it's quite important to, you know, keep these things lubricated. So I'm going to go ahead and just open this thing up and use my finger. You have to use your finger if you don't want, obviously, and just kind of lube all these things back and forth all over the place. So you want to lube all the rods where it travels, even the big ones there in the back. So after putting some grease on, I noticed right away this thing started being a lot more smooth. So yeah, it looks like it's very important to put the grease on, because it literally was gliding now. It was definitely a lot rougher than this. And even the Y also got better. And I went ahead and put some on the bigger rods too. And also check, make sure your lead screw is lubricated. Mine is already plenty lubricated, so. But the rods were actually pretty dry. Yeah, quite important to put that grease on the rods or it'll wear them out really quick. And also here in the back of the printer, I forgot to mention that the detector here actually has a little light that glows, indicating that, you know, it's detecting filament. So that's a pretty nice little touch. So let's go ahead and change the filament. So I got the nozzle preheated, so it should come out pretty easily. So I'm just going to compress the arm here and then just pull it out manually. I can actually spin this and it'll come out pretty easy. And there we go. Pretty simple. Now we'll grab our black filament, set it on the spool, feed it through the detector, and then into the arm. And then I'm just going to manually push it all the way through until it comes out at the hot end. And this definitely works a lot better than trying to use the automatic feed, because that thing is super slow. So I'm just going to push it until I can see black filament coming out. And there it goes. That should be good right there. All right, and so we are starting the calibration cube. So everything I slice is going to be 0.2 millimeters height, 50 millimeters a second, and 200 degrees on the temperature at the moment. So pretty normal stuff, nothing too special. I'm just using the basic Ender 3 style profile, just adjusted the volume of this printer. Retraction right now is at 6.5 at 25 millimeters a second. So far everything looks pretty good. And hopefully you can see it here from the top. It is black filament. I have a feeling it's going to do quite well. Especially now that I lubricated those rods, it seems to be very smooth. So. All right, so fingers crossed, our calibration cube is going to come out well, and also the benchy, and we'll take a closer look once they are finished. All right, so I got the cube, the benchy, and also I did a bearing so we can test the tolerances. So let's go ahead and look at the calibration cube. All right, so let's start with the X here, and you guys can see, pretty nice. Practically no ghosting looks like, and very nice layer adhesion. The Y also looks pretty good, but there is more noise in it, and there's some kind of interesting pattern, but no ghosting, so that's nice. So this is the X wall. The Y wall, and you guys can see there's more patterns in it, or grain. The bottom, pretty much perfect, and the top looks good. So yeah, definitely much better than I was expecting, even though there's something funny going on the Y axis, and I think I know what it is. The X is pretty much perfection. So I got some calipers. Let's go ahead and measure. Start with the X here. So the cube's supposed to be 20, and it's really close, 20.1. Go to the Y. Okay, well the Y is definitely a lot more under than it's supposed to be. Let's try the Z now. And the Z is pretty much perfect. So yeah, overall pretty impressive, and this is definitely what I'm looking for when I'm looking at a Creality machine. And especially this one here, you know, being a pretty pro industrial machine, I expect it to do pretty well. So let's check out this benchy. I think this is going to be a little more interesting. So again, the layers are sitting very well. You know, there's not much more you can expect a 3D printer. I mean, this is very nice layers. Now, it's not the best I've ever seen, obviously, but it is definitely up there. And you guys can see the cooling is quite good around the arches on both sides. The box right here does have a slit in it. Now, whenever there is a gap, it usually indicates that it has pretty good precision. Now, there's no scientific way to back that up, but it's just what I noticed, but it's not always true. But here we can see the top, very nice, and the chimney. So yeah, very nice solid print. and definitely above average to most printers. All right, so for the last print here, we have the bearing. So the bearing, or this one in particular, is not only quite hard to print because all of these pieces are separate, but also they all have to have a gap in between in order to churn. And this is a test to see how accurate the printer is and if it's able to print functional parts. So I have this Allen wrench here. I'm going to stick it in here in the middle. Okay, so it did go in. So that's a good sign. Now we just need to turn it and see if it breaks loose. And sure enough, it does break loose. A little bit tight on the tolerance, but it did have a little bit of hairs there. I guess my retraction at 6.5 is not good enough. And it's not that tough because I can spin it by hand just holding it without the wrench. So, I mean, it still works, and the more you spin this, the easier it'll get. But in any case, overall, I think we were pretty successful. I'm very happy to see how the layers are sitting on the cube and the benchy. Now, the thing that makes me think that there might be something a little bit wrong on the Y, whenever I do pull it back and forth with my hand, I can feel that there's some kind of uneven resistance. Now, the X is smooth as butter, especially after we greased it. It's very good. But the Y is not perfect, and I think it has to do with these rods here. So there's a rod there, and then there's another rod inside here. And if you guys look closely, if I can hold this camera still, you can kind of see the rod is a little bit uneven. It kind of goes up and down a bit. So that makes me think that because it has a little bit of wobble back and forth, it's fighting between the four corners of all the gears. And the belt in between, it's kind of getting tighter, looser, and plus it's probably offsetting somewhat something. And this is why I think there's a little bit of that weird pattern here in the Y, if you can see that pattern, because the X doesn't have it at all. It's smooth. The Y has this interesting pattern into it. But we're going to print some more prints and we will see how it goes and what it all looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and print out a few more things and then we'll check those out. Actually, guys, out of curiosity, I am printing some TPU right now. So I'm pretty curious if it's going to churn out. It does have to go through a pretty long tube all the way down. But for some reason, I have confidence in this extruder that's going to push it. And it's not on a spool. It's just some filament I had is laying on the floor and kind of just feeding in. So I'm pretty excited to see if it actually turns out. So far, everything looks pretty good. All right, so these are all the prints that I printed, and we definitely have some things to talk about here. So before we take a closer look, I just want to say that I try my best to present the printer as it is when it comes out of the box. So there's going to be issues, and I do have issues, sometimes more, sometimes less. And I know it doesn't pertain to each individual printer because there are so many moving parts and everything has to work together. You know, if there's something a little bit wrong, sometimes it really translates pretty heavily into the print. But with that said, all the prints down here that we've seen already, let's check out this little frog here. And this print, it shows really well usually how good the layers go down on a small delicate print like this. Now I did break off his foot kind of, or broke it when I was pulling it off a little too quick. But yeah, underneath here we can see that it's got really good layer adhesion. So this is what I noticed with this printer. Very good cooling and just great adhesion. Now if you guys can see there on his body, we do have that pattern on the y-axis. This is going to be a continuous thing on all of the prints. But yeah, as far as the quality of the print, it's really nice. It's definitely what's expected out of a Creality printer, and it delivers. And on this, I did have retraction set at 7mm, just a little bit higher, and it seemed to be perfect. So quite a good print here with the frog. Let's check out the screw here. Yeah, bottom's perfect as usual. The layers, the way they bond is excellent. Now at certain places where we get to the y-axis, we can see the patterns coming back. So even in the threads here, you can kind of see it maybe. But that same diagonal pattern is back. And as I printed, I wondered what the case might be, so I did look at the belts and the pulleys, and I couldn't really find anything wrong, except for the two main rods being a little bit off center and wobbling back and forth. And I'm guessing this is what's causing all of this strange patterns in the print. So the next print I did is this octopus, and what's interesting about the octopus is it does have a lot of parts that combine together. So this shows how well the bed stuck, and then again, there was no issues with sticking to the bed. The print quality itself looks excellent, except for the diagonal lines here on the y-axis. So you can't see them on the X, but the Y, they start appearing. So unfortunately, all the prints did get affected. Now, another thing I noticed, and not all of the prints, and some of them have more than others, but where there's more retraction, like this print here, we have a little bit of blobbing here and there. Now, it does rub off most of it. Very minor. Now, I did get curious with the TPU, as you guys saw. To my surprise, the astronaut actually completed and turned out really nice. So this is transparent TPU, so you can kind of see through it. But as far as the layers, they're sitting really nice. And for TPU, this turned out really nice. I was actually really impressed. And we didn't even have much to grab onto, but TPU usually grabs on pretty well because it's a rubber. And by the way, if I push on this helmet here, you guys can kind of see it squishing in. So because it has infill on the inside, it's a little bit, you know, hard to push, but so you can throw this thing around and it'll never break. Printing in TPU is actually quite fun. I haven't done it too much. Every time I do it, I do enjoy it, so I might have to do it a little more, and maybe solid colors of TPU so we can see the layerings a little better. But yeah, overall great print. We still get the diagonal issues here also, but you can't almost see them because of, you know, the way this print is. So yeah, I was very happy to see that this printer could do TPU with no issues. And I think a lot of it has to do with that extruder back there. It does a great job pushing the filament through. Also, I printed this little Squirtle, but he's printed in PETG. So I just wanted to see how well this printer will do with PETG, and you guys can see it printed out really well. Again, the patterns there are messing it up, but the print itself is really nice and it did an excellent job. Now, I did have an issue of him popping off when I first started printing, and that was because it was in economy mode or economic mode. For some reason, that turns off the bed or cools it down, and the print popped off. So if you don't want that to happen, you might want to turn the eco off. Now, we can't go with printing an astronaut and not a spaceship for him, so this is a spiralized print, and you guys can see that it did not turn out very well. For some reason in spiralized, whatever this issue is, it just enhances even more, so everything looks pretty rough, and you can kind of see all the weird lines and everything. So yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate, but as far as the model itself, it did really well. There's nothing much we can judge here with the quality and things like that, but you know, going up here higher is where we can see a little better. And the part that's kind of impressive is this upper part, because this is a small spaceship here. I normally don't print them this small. This part here actually did an excellent job for the size of this model here, because this usually melts really easy, and even though this one did melt towards the end here, it was still able to do that ball without even melting it. So cooling on this machine is excellent, or as far as I can tell. So I guess that 3D printed duct up there seems to work just fine. And for the last print, we have a large vase. So let's start off with the bottom here. Now, because I increased the flow rate 10%, I think is what I did, 110%, it kind of enhanced the whole grainy pattern, so you guys kind of see it even here underneath. Now, if we go to the sides, this is where you're going to really see this pattern. And so I think with the over extrusion on purpose to try to make this thing stronger, and the other issue that we're having, this is the pattern we got. So it's pretty severe, and you know, you can't really judge this print how nice it is, obviously, because the pattern, you know, takes away all the smooth details. But if we look here right on the corner, we can see, you know, the layers are sitting pretty nice. And on the top, you guys can see how thick that is, and just 10% extra would do that. And so we got a pretty strong vase now that we can even put water in and should hold it, and stick some flowers in there or whatever you want. So yeah, the printer itself is very accurate and does a great job, but since there's something off, we are seeing that pattern, unfortunately. Now, with that said, I guess I'm just lucky and got a faulty printer, but I understand these things happen, and Creality is a pretty credible company, and I know they have good quality control, so I know this is probably a pretty isolated situation, and I know this machine is very capable because we saw that in the calibration cube, how well the layers sit and the benchy. So getting past that, the machine itself is amazing. I don't think I've been so excited about a 3D printer than this one, because I absolutely love how it looks. The construction of it is just unreal. It is all solid metal, and it's all one piece. It's not like it's connected in pieces. All of this is just one piece of metal that's somehow formed, and then some pieces added here and there. So the build quality on this thing is outstanding. And then as far as the mechanics go of it, everything is oversized, high quality metal. So it does feel very premium overall. And with that, we do get a lot of modern features like a touch screen, filament detection, the ultra base style build platform, insulated heated bed, and also the quiet steppers. So that's very nice. Full size SD card. So this printer is very nice, and I think if you were looking for something like this thing will absolutely not disappoint. It has a wow factor and also backs it up with the very high quality print. So if you are interested in this printer, check out Top 3D Shop, where they have this printer and many other brands and kinds, and also everything else that has to do with making and cutting and stuff like that. So, and if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. If you enjoy videos like this, I do have more 3D printing videos coming up, so stay tuned for that. And also check out my playlist where I have quite a few reviews that I've done already. You'll probably find something interesting there. All right guys, well thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Alright guys, so the video's not over, and the reason for that is because I did finally figure out what was wrong with the printer, and I feel like I need to add this here to the end of the video to make sure that people understand this crucial part about this printer. So I am printing another spaceship, and you guys can see right away that it looks much better than the other one that we saw. So after I finished the video, I just was not at rest because I couldn't understand exactly what was happening, so I started to just take everything apart and look at it, all these rods and belts and things like that, and also looking at all the pulleys, and I realized something, and this is something you won't know unless, you know, I guess someone tells you or you really look at it. If you see these bolts here on the corners, two of them have different kind of brackets that are actually adjustable. And if we go here underneath one, you can kind of see that there's a little slit on the top. This is an adjustable bracket. And then we have another kind of bracket, which is a solid bracket, and there's no slits. So the two adjustable ones are here and the non-adjustable are here. And so what they're for is whenever you tighten up one corner more than the other, it compresses the bracket because it has some give, and it skews the whole mount with the bearing in it kind of side to side. And so what's happening is this bracket here was over adjusted to one spot, so it made this rod here very difficult to turn, and that caused it to bind in intervals like this. So whenever I would move the Y, it would be choppy. So after I took everything apart and realized what the issue was, I put it all back together, and everything's been working really nice after that. So after it's done, we're gonna compare it to the older one and see the difference. All right, so our spaceship is finished, so let's compare it to the old one. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn off this light because it's making everything way too blue. Hopefully this will give us a little better idea of what the differences are. So yeah, you guys can see here where we came from and what we have now. So it's a dramatic difference. I feel like now the printer is going to do an excellent job at everything. So I'm really excited for this thing because I was so looking forward to using this as my main machine, and I was a little disappointed to see the prints that were coming out of it. But now that I figured it out, it is more than acceptable and actually pretty exceptional, the print quality. So all right guys, well hopefully you found this useful, and I wish I would have figured this out a little earlier. Stay tuned for more videos. I will be making some projects with this printer, and from everything I've seen so far, I'm really liking it. All right, well thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.